How's it going, Yankee fans? Welcome back to Fireside Yankees with your boys, Alex and Ryan. Today we're talking about Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. I know he's one of the more polarizing players on this Yankee team, but we want to talk about the idea of extending IKF. Is it worthwhile? Is he a player that we want for the future? Now, I'm going to kind of lay out my reasons first and foremost. This is not a player that I want starting games ever. This is a player that I want as a last resort depth piece. If you need a guy to step in to fill in DJ LeMahieu having a right calf injury right before the game starts, IKF can play third base. If your left fielder runs into the wall and bangs his foot and is out for 3 months, IKF is there to help you. If your center field simply cannot play baseball because he's on the injured list for 70% of the season, IKF is there to help you. If you need anybody, you need a freaking pitcher because you're out being blown out by the White Sox 10-2, IKF is there to help you. This is the player that you want to do all the dirty work because you're losing games or you're winning by a lot or guys are injured and you need to supplement stuff. He's just a good utility piece to have across the board. And for what it's worth, he's going to be dirt cheap. We're going to run you through some of the statistics. We're going to throw some highlights and some really cool graphics into this episode for you guys, kind of changing it up a little bit so you guys have a little bit more of an engaging experience watching this Fireside Yankees episode. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Love to hear your feedback below in the YouTube comments as always. But Ryan, before we dive into IKF, how you doing today, my friend? And what are your thoughts about him as a potential future Yankee?
Well, if we exclude the Yankees, I'm doing pretty good, right? But overall, I think the IKF contract is going to be extremely interesting because, number one, is it going to be more than the $6 million he got this year, right? In terms of an AAV, like an average annual salary, you imagine it is, and is it going to be a multi-year commitment? You also imagine it is. And I guess the question I have is, can the Yankees get a player that fits what they need a little bit more at that price point? I think they kind of can. And I'm not saying a guy like a utility piece, more so a bat, right? This team can't hit. And I have a hard time trying to commit money to guys who also aren't the best offensive players. Now, IKF has been a lot better after the month of April, and he deserves a lot of credit for that. He's done a lot of things really well this year. He's actually chasing a lot less than he did in years past. His chase rate is in the 62nd percentile. Last year's in the 37th percentile. His strikeout rate's still excellent. His sweet spots are better. His barrel rate's better. His exit velocity is better. Everything is better for IKF. But is it good enough for me to warrant wanting him to come back? I'm not sure. I think it all comes down to what that price point looks like. If it's a 1-year deal, that can't hurt you. A 1-year deal, it's not that. You can't really lose a 1-year deal. Even if theoretically, the guy doesn't play very well, it's a 1-year deal, right? It's very hard to lose those. It's when you have a second or third year involved that you get a little bit wonky. But one of the weird things that we're looking at here is we're looking at a free agent class that isn't very good. There aren't, obviously there's Shohei Ohtani, and Shohei Ohtani in and of itself is going to be enough of a spectacle to cover the offseason, but it feels like the Yankees aren't getting him, right? I'm pretty confident in saying at this point in time, the Yankees aren't going to go out and get Shohei Ohtani. And that's fine. I'm not gonna sit here and cry over something I kind of knew was going to be the case already. But in a world where this free agent market isn't great, are guys going to be bid up? Are you going to see guys get more money than they usually would? Kind of not a comparable player, but kind of like a similar player in what they do, but not necessarily in terms of production. You have Whit Merrifield, right? He's a utility guy. He plays all over the diamond. He's sitting pretty decently with the Toronto Blue Jays. I believe his WRC plus is around 110. He's entering free agency at the age of 34. When he signed his extension, it was a $16 million deal for 4 seasons. Again, that was buying out arbitration years, so not necessarily a fair comparison, because when you're buying out ARB years, it's going to come at a lower cost than buying out free agent years. So I wonder if that's a comparable deal. Would I do $16 million committed, though? Not sure. I don't know if I want to do the, lower the AAV, but just have it for a bunch of years. Maybe that works for IKF because he's a younger guy, but overall, I think I'm very unsure about extending IKF. I think there are a lot of other things I'd like to do before I extend IKF. And if you are able to, that's great. If you do all the moves you need to do to improve your offense and then you extend IKF, that's awesome. But I kind of need the Yankees to get a left, or maybe it doesn't have to be a left fielder, but a bat, just an outfield bat. I need them to get someone to help us out at third base if they're not going to trust Peraza. I need some sort of security at catcher. You've got Kyle Higashioka who's doing okay, and you got a catcher who's coming off of a wrist surgery. So either you got to call up Wells now so I can see a little bit of him right now, because I'm not going to trust the rookie catcher to start a season with a team and play the 162 and have no bumps in the road, especially when we're talking about a pitching staff that's used to throwing to Jose Trevino. What does that playing time look like? Do you have to dial down the playing time if he's not receiving the ball well? And if so, do you have to put him at other positions? Like, there's a lot of complications there. I'd like, you don't want to put yourself in a position where your starting catcher is a rookie and then your backup plans like, a quadruple A player in triple A, right? Like, that's really the situation you want to avoid here. So overall, I think the Yankees have a lot of things they have to cover before they cover IKF, and I think that's why I'm a little bit more indifferent on extending him.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. I think there's definitely a lot to say about yes or no. Like, you can go either direction. I think mostly, like, I'm on board with it because every team needs to have a good, I mean, even a fine utility piece just at multiple positions, and him having a lot of experience in the outfield now is certainly a positive. At the same time, like you said, he's historically not an above average bat ever. I think that's kind of like the downfall with IKF. But again, he's 28 years old. Like, extending him, and look, when I say extending him, I'm not giving him like a 4-year deal. I'm thinking like 1 or 2 years maximum. And he's only got 1 year, $6 million this year. The 0.3 WAR right now, I don't even think, maybe he gets half that. Maybe he gets $3 million a year, and like, that's okay. Like, having a player that can step in and give you, he's hitting 254, 325 OBP. It's fine. However, he's been pretty good lately. In the month of July, he hit 292 with a 419 OBP. Now, he's never going to be a slugger. He's hitting 233 with a 343 OBP now in August. But, this is a player who can hit for contact. He's decent with runners in scoring position. He doesn't strike out a lot. He's walking actually at a career high 9.1% this year, which is interesting. He's on pace to tie his career high in home runs with a 6 right now. His career high is 8. And he's an athlete. He can run the bases. He can do some stuff for you. He makes some plays. He's a good third baseman. Like, he's a fine player. I think $3 million for a player that can play shortstop, third base, every outfield spot. You can go in there. You can play catcher if you really needed him to. I would never want to do that, but that's just throwing it in there because it is what it is. And he probably has the lowest ERA on our entire team right now in terms of pitching. But I'll tell you what, you have a player that can play most infield spots, most outfield spots. He can hit at a fine level. And for what it's worth, he's a good Yankee. Like, I respect his resiliency. I think that he's a good clubhouse fit for us. The fact that he kind of faced all, like, how many players have we seen in the past, like Joey Gallo, how many guys have just failed to play for the Yankees because of the intensity and the criticism that they've received? I mean, I don't think anyone has gotten more criticism than IKF. I think maybe even more than Gallo. IKF has been criticized, but the guy never wavered. Like, he faced all of that right in the eye, and then became a productive piece on this team and really did some stuff. And I think aside from his actual production and metrics on the baseball diamond and in the batter's box, he's a good person to have on the team because he's faced the adversity of being a Yankee, and he might be able to help other people get through that. What he did to finally come out of it, to finally offer the team some value in one way or another. Like, we need players like that on this roster. We need guys who know how to deal with being a New York Yankee, and it's not an easy job because we make it really, really difficult for these guys mentally. So maybe having him on this team is a good thing because he's dealt with that, and he's come out of it on the other side as an actual player that people would like to extend. We just tweeted out maybe an hour or two ago, and a lot of people, the majority of answers are yes, we would bring him back on a cheap deal. And I think that's fine. You know what I mean? Like, what are your thoughts about that? Because I think it's an interesting narrative to consider, the fact that, having him because of his mentality and the fact that he's faced the adversity and answered, maybe that's something that kind of goes unnoticed, something that may be like an underrated variable when it comes to his value on this team.
Yeah, so, overall, like, it depends on the money, but, like, as you mentioned, he's done a really good job in the clubhouse. He's done a really good job off the field of, handling what it means to be a Yankee very well. As you mentioned, like, he's dealt with adversity. Like, there are a lot of reasons the Yankees could have moved on from IKF over the offseason, and they didn't. And, it was a move that people didn't love. I certainly didn't love the move, but so far he's been solid. Like, you can't really complain about $6 million to IKF at this point. It's $6 million, right? Like, it's a very small fragment of the payroll. There are, I can name $50 million of reasons. I'm not going to call anyone out, but just saying they're a third baseman and part of the trade that brought IKF here, as, other bigger, more important examples of the reasons why the Yankees are not very good offensively. It's a weird situation where, like, I'm kind of I think you're kind of in a weird spot where, like, after a year like this, do you really want to bring back more people from this team? It's a weird situation. It really is it's a tough call, right? Like what is the right response to a ball club that really, I mean, this is a miserable season, right? Like I know they're above 500, but their expectations were to compete for a World Series. It wasn't to be fighting the Boston Red Sox for fourth place, right? Like this is a disappointing season in every regard. I imagine
I'm gutting this team
Yeah.
for sure, but like IKF is having his best year in terms of WRC plus, and he's, you know, like he's actually one of the few pieces that didn't get worse. You know what I mean?
That's true.
Like a lot of players on this team got significantly worse. Stanton, DJ LeMahieu, Josh Donaldson, Harrison Bader, they all took a shit. They all are in the shitter. IKF is one of the only guys that actually didn't get worse. And he actually found a way to provide value to this team. And I can respect that. You know what I mean? I can sit here and acknowledge, like, we really did not like him early going into this year. We were very critical. The fact that he faced that and turned it into something positive for him and the team, I think that's something to respect. And, like, not a lot of things like that happened this year. Not a lot of players stepped up and found a way to produce and contribute in a positive way. And at such a cheap cost, you know, I'm looking at guys like, you know what I mean? Like Donaldson, gone. Get the money off of the books. You know, that money is gone. DJ LeMahieu, if we could trade him, I would. If we could trade Stanton, I would trade Stanton. But we can't. Like, IKF is making such a minimal and such a small fragment of salary in the future, you know, based on the fact that he's not that really good of a player. He's not an everyday starter. I kind of feel like it's a blip on the right. It's a drop in the bucket. You know what I mean? Having a player that can do all that and was the only one that actually showed any sort of positivity this year, it's a drop in the bucket. Like, I think it's fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you know, ultimately the way I view it is just, you know, like if it's IKF for like a fourth outfield bat that's like an actual outfielder and can hit a little bit more, I'm taking the fourth outfielder bat. But if it's like, would you rather have IKF on your team or rather not have IKF on your team? I'd rather have IKF on my team. Like, I don't think I want to make it clear I'm not arguing that the Yankees are worse off with IKF on their team. More so, I'm a little bit concerned about what the Yankees spending is going to look like this offseason. I'm a little bit concerned about how willing Hal Steinbrenner will be to invest in a team that just, you know, did this with a $290 million payroll. So, you know, in my head, I'm kind of operating with like the Yankees are probably not going to spend a ton this offseason. They're probably going to stay under as many luxury tax thresholds as possible. And with that thought in mind, like, will they be like, would they sign IKF and use that as a reason to not acquire a different guy who might be a little more offensively oriented? So I guess the way the way I word how I feel about signing IKF or bringing him back in the offseason is that you're better off with IKF than without him. Absolutely. And I'd like to see him play more of the infield than the outfield. He's a much better defender in like third, short, second, and center than he is in like left field. Like, I don't want to see him in left field. If you can do that, that's great. But if it comes down to like, hey, should the Yankees sign like an actual outfielder or should they bring back IKF? You kind of have to bring the outfielder in. And another thing too, and this sucks. This really does suck to say because it's not like LeMahieu's deserved to, you know, say like, oh yeah, he's got to be on the team next year. But the contract warrants him having to be on the team next year. It's going to be very hard to move off that deal. And you kind of view him as your backup infielder. So you do still need someone who can play shortstop. I don't know how comfortable the Yankees are with playing IKF at shortstop right now. They tried to yesterday, but then LeMahieu got hurt, and so that put Cabrera there. And like he's not the worst defensive. Like, I know he wasn't good last year, but is he the worst defensive shortstop I've ever seen? I can live with it. Like, as a backup shortstop, I'll live with it. Volpe's probably going to be playing 95% of games at shortstop anyways. I'll take the 5% of games you have of IKF there, and I'll take the reps at second, and I'll take the reps at third, and I'll take the occasional reps in center field, as you mentioned. It's just like, what is his role on the team going to be? How does DJ LeMahieu affect his role on the team? And how much are the Yankees spending this offseason? I think all three of those variables matter, but I think we can agree you're better with him than without him.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where I'm looking. Look, if the difference between signing Cody Bellinger is the money that you'd be paying IKF, see you later. Sayonara, IKF. I'm going to get Bellinger. But, like, if Cashman's pinching pennies like that, we are in much deeper shit than we realize. You know what I mean? We are in much bigger trouble than we realize because, you know, if he's not willing to spend an extra $2 million, $3 million, like, to have a decent player that made a positive impact, like, I don't really know where we stand. And if that's the case, Ryan, if what you're saying does come to fruition and we don't spend big, why are we not playing our prospects right now? Why are we not seeing what we have for the future? Because that means we're running back basically the same team, and that's problematic to say the least. So, guys, I'd love to hear your perspectives below in the YouTube comments about IKF. If you think we should extend him, your reasons for, your reasons against. We definitely had differing opinions on this one, so I hope you guys kind of got both sides of it. That was the entire point. But I hope that you guys walked away with some information and a better idea of what we think about this team. As always, hope you enjoyed this episode. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Yankees episode.